Here we have a fairly standard drawing, a bungalow plan with elevations and a section. And the job in hand is quite simple: to discover what sizes the windows are, record those, and also, if possible, schedule the windows. And we'll look a little at how we can do that too. So we're going to try to do it in the simplest way we can. First of all, identifying the size of the windows, and then recording them into a form that will provide us with that schedule. So we have our elevations and plan and section here, and there are a few things on here that we don't actually need in order to be able to assess the size of the windows. For instance, the hatching. So we have hatching here, and we have some dimensions, but we'll just, before we get too involved, we'll just check that we do have something that is reasonable in terms of the sizes we have. So if we check on dimensions here, so if we just go to our measure tools, and we'll say we'll measure in the X direction, and if we measure from, say, there to there, we'll see here it tells us that it's 4.6 meters, that's 4,600 millimeters, which is precisely what it says down there. So we can see that is exactly what we've got. So just showing that once again. So there we are, 4,600 or 4.6 meters. So going back to our drawing, so we'll just go back to the whole thing. What we can do is remove these. So I'm going to pick on a piece of the hatching. I'm going to pick on a dimension there, and then just simply right click, and then coming down to the layering and display, and say I don't want to see the layers for those particular objects. So that just simplifies things and makes it a little bit clearer. Just that clarity helps us just assess exactly what we do need in terms of our information. So we can actually define our own layers. So we can go there, and I'll put one on here for creating the window dimensions. So that's going to put the dimensions that we do put down separate to the ones that were already on the drawing. In terms of recording the information, then obviously we have just a 2D drawing here. So we will want both the plan. So if we zoom into here, we'll see that we've got the plan. And if we go back to here, we'll see that those same windows are over here on our drawing. So what we need to do is to be able to relate the two together. So a simple way to do that is to split the screen with a viewport. So we can have two horizontal here. So if we just split the screen, so they're absolutely identical at the moment. But I've just saved a couple of views. Click into this viewport to activate it. Then we'll go for the elevation. So there's our elevation, and in this viewport, we'll click into that and say that this is going to be our plan. So there we are. So we've got some things that allow us to just relate the two. So I can just move that across a little bit, just so that just relates a little bit better still. There we are. So we've got things fairly well aligned here. We'll see that we have down here a listing for the window, but I'm just going to come back to that one. So before we do that, let's just go to our dimensions. So we have our dimensions down the left-hand side. So this is how we drive Caddie to do our bidding, shall we say. So we have split into different object types, and here we have text, leaders, and dimensions. And we can set up dimension styles so they accord with our wishes, but we're going to keep this video pretty simple. So we're going to dimension into the plan viewport here. So I'll just click into there, and you'll see that I've got a shape of cursor. In this case, it relates to endpoint snap. So I can pick a point there, pick a point there, and then just drop my dimension in. I can pick a point there, I can pick a point there, and then just drop my dimension in, and just carry on dimensioning my windows. And as it happens, these are all 1000, and then we can do these as well. So a bit tight for space down here, but it was simply just to make it visible. So there we are. I've moved it up. And we'll drop those in. We could, of course, align all these so they're nicely aligned in our drawing if that's what we're wanting to print off, and we can slide across just a quick pan operation using the middle button on the mouse. So there we have our windows dimensioned in plan. So now we want to dimension them vertically because we want to know how tall they are. We could, of course, just measure these, but here we're actually recording it onto the page such that it's an easier reminder. We're not having to go back and do it again and again. So we're dimensioning in the elevation. So we click into this viewport and we can see there's a blue box around this one. And it will say, OK, we're going to dimension from there to there. And these are all the same, so we could do them all, but suffice to show that here we have our full height to 100 windows, and then we're back to here. So the dimensions are automatically, or the dimensioning tool is automatically picking up the endpoints there. So we've identified the sizes of our windows. Now what we're going to do here, just press escape because I don't want to put any more dimensions down. I'm just going to zoom into this viewport, okay, and we'll see that we have a piece of text. So it says that it's Mtxt, so it's just a piece of text, and it says W01, window 01. Obviously, if you have your own system, then that's fine. You can employ that, but we'll choose that, and we'll look at not only the design data here, but we've got some extended data, which is going to allow us to note the sizes of this. So having measured it, we can see that it is 1525 by 1000. So if we put in 1000 by 1525, so there we are. We could put spaces in there if we wish. It tells us that it actually says W.01. It's on a particular layer, and the color. We could put in things like color references. So with Velvac, for instance, you can have the RAL code. So if you know that that's a heritage green, go for that. You've got the size, so it's in millimeters. We've logged the material, and it's a Velvac window. And I don't know what the part would be, but just imagine it's a top-hung reversible and code 115. So there is our window. And we can actually put hyperlinks in there as well. So if we're wanting to be able to note the style of these windows, we've got hyperlinks which we could simply follow if we want. So that would give us the ability to do that. So how do we cope with the next window? Well, this window is the same. So what we can do, we can select our window here, and then what we can see at the top of our screen is we have what's called the context sensitive toolbar, or a dynamic toolbar. And having selected text, it will show us the commands that we might want to use. So we have things like editing the text, so we could do that, but we have things like copy and modify the text. But we have one here, which I'm going to make use of, which is to copy and increment the text. So rather than having to go and manually type in, what I can do is I can select that one, and it says, OK, we're going to take our original text, W.01, and we're going to leave the W field as it is. So we're just removing the tick from there, so that will remain as W, but we're incrementing the 01 field, so that's after the full stop, with a 1. And we haven't got further fields, so we're only on that. But we can see OK is a sensible thing to do. And then if we just place that down there, we get that. And then we can just come along here. So we've got W3, W4, and then here we have W5, W6, and then W7, W8, and just rounding off, so you can place that, say, in there, so W9 and W10. So the majority of the windows are the same, however, we do have these which are different. So if we just select W5, we could look at that, and so that's say a 104, and we'll tell it that in actual fact the size of this one is 400 by 2100, because that's the size we've established. Okay. So that's there. In fact, if I just copy that, and then we'll come on to this one. So we have that, and then just checking our windows here. So we just label up the sizes. So with this one, we've determined that it was 1000 by 1525, and I'll just copy that. Okay, so there we can have the same size, and obviously if we added that information beforehand, we would have copied that information too. So we copy as much or as little as we want, but it's just identifying the windows as we go here, just recording them. So instead of having to write it down on pieces of paper and then try to work out where our pieces of paper are and which bits relate to which bits on the drawing, we can just make it all nicely recorded in there. So there we go. So we have our recorded windows. Then what we find is that we have our schedule down here. So with our schedule, we'll see that we can actually record those things there. Now, at the moment, we've just got the one item in there. So, in fact, if I select the item, so there's the table rather, and then we go up to context-sensitive toolbar again, I can actually zoom to the entry for that. So that will actually bring us back to that W01. So what we need to do is we need to add in those objects there to our table. So we'll go to our table. Here we are. We'll select that, and then because we're on the table, we'll see that we have the context-sensitive toolbar again, and this one allows us to add entities. So I can say I'm going to add the entities, all of the text items. And we'll see that it adds them in, and then we look at this and we see, actually we've made a little bit of an error here. So if I select my table and say, show me where this particular window is, because that one is incorrect. Okay, there is my window, and that one actually should be a 104. And then when I go back to my table, we'll notice that that's already updated, so our schedule is ready to go. And in terms of what we can do with that schedule, then we can select it, and we'll export it as a CSV file. So we'll say window schedule. And on loading the CSV file into Excel or our chosen program, then we can see that we can then start to utilize all the information that we've gathered from the drawing, employing it in our own spreadsheets with formulas and all. So that's a simple illustration of how we can use Caddie and its smart scheduling to log, record, dimension, and so forth, all of the information that we need to record with regard to our windows.